Warning, the following podcast contains adult content, adult language, and adult situations. I talk openly about sex and explicit topics. If you are under the age of 18 or are uncomfortable listening to sexually explicit narratives, please listen no further. I am not a professional therapist, counselor, or doctor. I'm just an average guy in the swinger lifestyle who likes to share his experiences. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Please seek a professional if you are in need of advice, guidance, or care as it relates to sexual health or alternative lifestyles. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Evan Swings, a podcast about the swinger lifestyle, all from a male perspective, my perspective. I'm your host, Evan Dienson, and I'm glad you're here listening. I am half of a swinger couple. My wife is Eva, and we have been in the lifestyle since 2021. And while she has plenty of interest in the lifestyle, she has no interest in doing this podcast thing with me. So, I'm more of a writer, a talker, or like an explainer than her. So that's why I do this podcast alone. She just wants no part of it. She supports it, but wants no part of it. So that's why I say this is from a male perspective. My perspective, my point of view. Anyway, thank you so much for taking the time to give this podcast a listen. If you are tuning in for the first time, I do highly recommend that you stop and go back to episode 1 and listen to that first. I'm currently recording these podcasts discussing our experiences in the lifestyle in chronological order. So in this episode, I'll talk about our second and third experiences, or I guess I should say full swaps, which so happen to be with the same couple. So thank you for joining me for this podcast. You may be asking, why do I do this podcast? Well, for me, it's fun. It's fun for me, and I hope it will also be informative and fun for my listeners. I really don't have anybody to talk about the lifestyle with. We live north of Dayton, Ohio, kind of small town America. And while we have established plenty of friendships in the lifestyle, we have not yet established any long-lasting local friendships. Now, my old DJ partner and I, who I talked about in previous episodes, the first 2 episodes, we don't DJ anymore, so we don't talk as much as we used to. So I don't have anyone that I can just call up or text and be like, "Hey, guess what just happened to me last night?" Or, "Hey, let me tell you about Eva and I our trip to the club last night." I can't really do that. I don't have friends that know about our involvement in the lifestyle. So doing this podcast is a way for me to talk about our experiences in the lifestyle. I do wish I had friends, like even vanilla friends, that I could share our adventures with. But there, like I said, really isn't anyone that matches, for lack of a better word. Sex in our society is still a very taboo topic. So, for example, where I work, and I'm a teacher, my colleagues are all educated, mature adults. We all have sex with our partners. Sex is a normal thing that we all do. Yet, it's a topic we virtually never talk about as colleagues. It is considered a very private, personal thing. We make jokes on occasion. We'll say something like, "Ooh, I'm having a weekend away with my wife," and they're like, "Ooh, you're gonna have fun," things like that. But other than that, it's very private and personal, and that's fine. Everyone can have their own opinions about what information they share. But for me, I wish I could talk more openly about my involvement in the lifestyle. I mean, heck, I can't even use my real name on this podcast. I have no doubt that my employer, my school district, would fire me if my lifestyle involvement became public knowledge. Why? Because I have sex with women that aren't my wife? Even though my wife consents to it? Who cares? It's not a big deal. But unfortunately, it is for a lot of people in our society. Swinging is still not socially accepted, generally speaking. Thankfully, I think we have come a long way with the acceptance of, gay people, lesbians, transgenders. We've come a long way, and we still have a long way to go too. But I think we have made some progress as a society in that regard with some of those topics that were once considered taboo. So I'm hoping that somehow, some way, this podcast helps to remove some of that negative stigma that surrounds swinging. I would love to just see it normalized someday, just accepted just as a normal, natural thing that some people choose to do. I don't water ski, but I don't think people who water ski are crazy. I wish it was the same with the lifestyle. And I don't know why I picked water skiing. That just came to mind. But I hate that I have to hide it. I'll walk into work on a Monday after a fun weekend, and my coworkers will ask me, what I did this weekend. I hate lying. Okay, well, I really don't lie, but I certainly don't tell them what I actually did. I would love to say, "Oh yeah, Eva and I, we had a date on Saturday." No need for crazy details, unless they really wanted to hear them. I'm a pretty open guy. I'd probably tell them if they really wanted to hear them. But just to be able to say, just say what I actually did and not fear that I will be looked down upon or shunned or have my job put at risk or have them, look at me differently. That would just be amazing. But we're just not there yet as a society. So, in my opinion, if more non-lifestyle people would get a chance to experience the lifestyle, like not necessarily engage in any sexual activity, okay, but just be around it, like at a club or a party, I think it would really help to have them begin to lose some of that negative stigma. I think more people would realize that it's a judgment-free, empowering, friendly, welcoming environment where people can just be themselves and enjoy themselves, and it's not that bad or dare I say evil. It's not this evil entity that they think it is. And again, I think we're on the right path, but it's going to take a lot more time. So until then, this podcast is kind of an outlet for me. It allows me to talk about the lifestyle openly and maybe have some people listen to it. So, okay, rant over. Let's get to the good stuff. When I last left you, Eva and I had just had our first ever full swap experience at a hotel takeover in Indianapolis in June of 2021. We had a great time, and we were ready to experience more. So we wanted to meet some new couples. So I have learned that there are two types of swingers, and credit where credit is due. I heard this on a podcast. I think this was the Accidental Swingers who mentioned this at one point, that there's two types of swingers. There's sexual swingers, and then there's social swingers. And I'll talk more about that in future episodes, but for right now, just know that Eva and I didn't know what the hell that was or what we were at the moment. Okay. That's something that developed over time with experience. So anyway, as I was saying, finding out what type of swinger that we were is something that developed over time. You learn what you like, you learn what you don't like, and ultimately what you want to get out of the lifestyle. So at the time, we just knew we wanted to have more sexual encounters and explore the lifestyle and our sexuality further. So after our first experience, I was all in. Okay, the world was my oyster now. In the past, I would see, a hot woman out and about, and I would know deep down that I was never gonna have sex with her. But now that I was a swinger, I looked at people differently. If I saw a hot woman, there was no longer a 0% chance I would ever sleep with them. Now it was more like a 1% chance. I mean, that person could possibly be a swinger too, right? Or possibly be in an open marriage, or possibly be single and open to the idea of sleeping with a married man and his wife. So anyway, I was very eager to have our next encounter. It ended up happening about a month later. So we're talking right now, mid-July 2021. Now, since I was eager, I started posting stuff on the Champagne Facebook page. And I noticed a lot of people that we had seen at the hotel takeover, including, if you listened to my last episode, the hottest woman I had ever seen on the Champagne site, and the quote-unquote wild-looking couple from the elevator. I was still shy about, reaching out to anybody, but we did get a few friend requests and become, Facebook friends with some other couples, including the couple from the elevator. So then I had this awesome idea. So Eva and I are board game nerds. We love playing board games and card games. Now, not your traditional Monopoly or Scrabble type games. We like what I guess are called European style board games. So they are more advanced and complex than games like, Risk and Sorry. So that's the type of game we're into. So my idea was to create a Facebook group and see who else had that same interest when it comes to board games. I thought it might be a fun connection to make with other lifestyle couples. If I could just find some other couples who enjoy the types of games we enjoy, that would be a great icebreaker when establishing a connection with another couple. We could even do like a swingers board game night. The possibilities were just flooding my mind. So I created a group called Board Games with Benefits, and I waited to see who else might be interested. I would say I had about 10 couples respond. None of them interested us, except one. To my surprise, the couple from the elevator joined. It turns out that they were big gamers too. Holy shit, I could not believe it. So I reached out to that couple and I began chatting with the dude. Okay, and we seemed to hit it off pretty well. We exchanged pics of each other and and of our spouses, I should say, and of our board game collections. I told them all about how I was just, I'm going to use the word enchanted. I was enchanted when I saw them in the elevator that night, and I'd been talking to Eva about them ever since. Flattery is a good thing. Okay, so they lived in southern Indiana, approximately 3 hours from us. Not exactly a convenient situation, but I was determined, and remember, I was very eager at this point to make it work. So I proposed a scenario. Why don't we rent an Airbnb in the Indianapolis area for a board game night? Indianapolis is about, kind of, sort of a midway point between where we lived. So we thought that would be a good meeting point. And I'll never forget his response to my request. He said, "Hell yeah, board games and fucking." So yeah, we're both on the same page. So it was a few weeks before we could really make it happen. So there was a lot of buildup. Okay, this was only the second couple I had really gotten to know through messaging or chatting. And this was the first time that Eva had gotten involved. So by rule, I don't keep any messages from her. Okay, anything I say while messaging is something Eva is allowed to see. Whenever she wants to see my phone, she can see my phone. She wants to see all the people I've been chatting with, she can see it, and she can read through any of the conversations she wants. There's no secrets. But she doesn't like to get involved in chatting with other couples until we've met them in person. And more on that in another episode. But to this day, she knows she's always welcome to see my phone and read any lifestyle conversation she wishes. Okay. So she had seen my conversations with the elevator couple guy, whom I'll now call the gamer guy. All right. We'll call him the gamer guy and the gamer girl. So she wanted to hear what his voice sounded like. She loves sexy voices and was intrigued as to what he sounded like. So the dude was more than willing to record an audio message for her. Eva about turned into a puddle when she heard it. She found him to have an incredibly sexy voice with this kind of a southern accent, I guess, and her anticipation level was ramped up. Now, I never chatted with Gamer Girl. Okay, that was just something that was never offered and just never came up. But the day finally came where we were to meet at the Airbnb. It was a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment just outside of Indy. We arrived first, and they showed up a couple of hours after, and we talked for a bit. Then we went out to dinner at a sports bar, and we were getting along great. Now, this is the girl, if you remember from my last episode, that had a very unique hairstyle. So one half of her head was completely shaven, and the other half was shoulder length brown hair that, hung down past her shoulders. So she had a lot of tattoos and several piercings. So I thought that this girl was a wild woman, and she was going to rock my world in the bedroom. One of the lessons of this episode is, don't ever judge a book by its cover, as you will see. After dinner, we went back to the apartment and began playing some games. They brought a whole bunch. We brought a whole bunch because, like I said, we were both board game nerds. So as we were playing the games, another thing I learned is that seating arrangements on a lifestyle date are very important. Lesson learned here. So while we played these games, I sat next to my wife, and then Gamer Guy sat next to her, and then Gamer Girl sat across from me with like this counter in between us. So basically I had no way to touch her, even accidentally. Okay, there was no way I can get to her like under the table or to my right. The counter was attached to the wall, and you could only walk around the counter in one direction. So I hope that makes sense. But he was getting a little touchy-feely with Eva. So after 2 or 3 rounds of nerdy board games, I forget who suggested it, but we decided to play a naughty variation I invented of a board game called Ticket to Ride. It's an excellent gateway game if you've never played. It's one of my favorites. But I created a version called Strip It to Ride. So as you build trains in the game, you are required to remove clothing. So it's, I think, a great way to move things along on a lifestyle date. So we all ended up naked or close to it fairly quickly. Okay, that's actually one of the things that Eva has told me recently is like, you've got to adjust the rules of that game because everybody gets naked way too quickly. So I forgot to mention that at one point during the game, Gamer Guy brought Gamer Girl to their bedroom for kind of like a pep talk of sorts, I think. You see, I was way off on this girl. She was not wild and crazy and outgoing at all. She was quite the opposite. She was very shy, like me. So when Gamer Guy started kissing and caressing Eva, her and I just kind of stood there across the large counter from each other and just kind of watched, kind of hoping the other person would make the next move. Guys, I am really shy until the ball starts rolling. It's one of the things I kind of always hope for when we meet a couple for a play date for the first time. Is I'm always hopeful that I don't have to make the first move. I'm just shy. So anyway, after a minute or two of watching them like make out, we made eye contact, and she ended up coming over to my side of the table, and we immediately started kissing. And I'm very thankful that she at least made that move, because we may have stood there all night if she hadn't. Well, I'm exaggerating, but I was very thankful she made the move. So there was a couch close by, and we somehow managed to get there. And Gamer Guy and we sat side by side while each other's wife sucked our dicks. And it was magical. It was hot. It was steamy. It was naughty. It was sensuous. It was exciting. It was all those things, and my brain knew all these things. But somehow, my dick did not get the message. Now, I figured with our first full swap at the hotel takeover, it was all first-time jitters that contributed to my inability to perform. But here I was again, excited and turned on, and nothing. Like, absolutely nothing. Like, completely flaccid. It was suggested, I forget by who, that we make our way to the bedroom to play. And so we did. So, all right. 1, 2, 3. 3 things happened for the first time in that Indianapolis bedroom. Number 1, Eva asked if she could go down on Gamer Girl, who was happy to oblige. That was her first time ever giving another girl oral. They also played quite a bit, so that was very nice. Number 2, I wanted to live out a fantasy and have 2 girls suck my dick at once. They obliged. So that was the first time that happened. Now, at that point, I was able to get semi-hard, so, probably because Eva was involved. So that worked out. And then the third thing that happened for the first time was I asked Gamer Dude if we could spit roast Eva. And he was very happy to oblige. So he started fucking her from behind while I stood in front of Eva, and she sucked on my dick. And it was amazing. So Soon after, all four of us were playing on the bed together. Well, not me and Gamer Guy. I'm 100% straight, and so was he. But still, a certain body part of mine was not cooperating. I could not believe it. Things were steamy, but it didn't want to stand at attention. Now, Gamer Girl had a pierced clit, pierced nipples, all new stuff for me that should have been incredibly exciting and boner inducing. But nothing. Okay, and we tried lots of things, but it just wasn't happening. And I didn't feel like I was nervous anymore, but nothing was happening. So Gamer Girl obviously noticed that I was having issues. Okay, and she asked if playing in a separate room might help. And since it was right across the hall, Eva and I agreed that it was worth a shot, sure. So we went across the hall and kept playing. But still, nothing was happening. So, I was doing lots of other stuff. I was fingering her. I was, giving her oral, kissing her all over, rubbing her all over. I was intent on making sure that she at least had somewhat of a good time. And at one point, I even paused to take a quick shower, hoping for some kind of rejuvenation or something, because nothing was working. Now, while all this was happening, I heard some pretty amazing sounds from Eva. Sounds of pleasure that I had not heard before. It was hot. Okay, at one point, she walked into our room, like where Gamer Girl and I were, and I said, "How's it going over there?" And she replied, "Amazing." You could just tell that she was just having an amazing time. And I asked her if she came, and she was like, "More times than I can count." I was so turned on by this, and she knew it. So she came over to the bed and started kissing me. And Gamer Girl was on top of me, trying to get me going. Well, when Eva started kissing me, I guess the anxiety or whatever was causing things not to work, it relented a little bit, and I started to get hard again. So I quickly threw on a condom, and Gamer Girl was finally able to ride me with my dick in her, although it still wasn't completely hard. And Eva went back over to play with Gamer Guy and released even more loud sounds of pleasure, most of which I had never heard before. It was so hot, guys. It was so hot. I'll never forget it. Now, me, even though I was only semi-hard, I still didn't last that long. So all those sounds my wife was making just turned me the fuck on. So I finished. And we talked. Gamer Girl and I, we talked a lot. And it was quite obvious that this girl was not the wild and crazy fuck that I had expected. She was tender and sweet. To this day, probably the sweetest girl I have met in the lifestyle. She was just so kind and complimentary, and we talked about deep stuff, not just lifestyle stuff. She was just really, really awesome, and I felt terrible that I couldn't satisfy her the way that my wife was being satisfied across the hallway. Let's see. What else can I tell you? Well, when it seemed like they had finished across the hall, we ended up going back over to join them. And the wet spot on the bed where my wife was massive. Now, she didn't squirt. She had never squirted. She had never squirted before at that point. A little foreshadowing there. But it was obvious that Gamer Guy had just taken her on quite a ride. And Eva commented on his amazing fingering technique. And I was very curious. So he actually, immediately volunteered to show me. So yeah, this guy had just fucked the shit out of my wife, gave her some pretty intense orgasms, and now he was going to let me in on one of his secrets. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was quite the educational experience. I learned some valuable lessons on this adventure, but the most significant was the fingering technique that Gamer Guy taught me. Eva and I, we now refer to it simply as the move. Okay, that's what he showed me. The technique he showed me, we just call the move. And it drives Eva wild. And I am forever grateful that Gamer Guy taught me his secret. So I have tried it with many women since then. Some really didn't enjoy it. And, some flat out disliked it and don't want me to do it. It's intense and different, but there's also been, plenty of women who have absolutely loved it, loved when I did it to them. But that was Gamer Guy's thing. And since then, I have kind of made it my thing. The surprise move, I guess you'd call it, that I like to pull out and use when I'm with somebody. So shortly after playtime was over, we all went to bed, and I got to have reclaim sex for the second time in my life, and it was amazing for the second time in my life. But I still had this lingering feeling of unhappiness. And it was because I did not satisfy my date. And I had now had trouble getting an erection on 2 straight lifestyle occasions. I knew what I had to do. So, before I go any further, I have to recap what we learned on this adventure, because that's one thing I like to do on this podcast is let you guys know the things that Eva and I have learned through our experiences in the lifestyle. So, number 1, don't judge a book by its cover. I made assumptions that Gamer Girl was this wild, crazy lady, but she was really a shy, sweet, kind, and just tender woman. And oh God, she's so sweet. She's just such a sweet person. Number 2, the move. Okay, I learned a technique that I could not only use to please my wife, but that I could use as a unique skill when I was with other women in the lifestyle. And number 3, I learned that my wife could lick pussy like a champ and could hold her own during playtime with another woman. So, after our first experience where she learned, that she was actually interested in bisexual play, this was the first time where she really got to explore that, and she really liked it. So, I guess we could say at that point forward that Eva was bisexual. And all the first we experienced, okay, the move, girl on girl, spit roasting, 2 women sucking on my dick, Eva's intense sounds of pleasure. It was a good time. It was a great time. Our first experience at the hotel takeover, that was more of a introduction, and this experience was kind of a step up from that. We're still learning, we're still new, but we were a little bit more comfortable. But I simply could not do another lifestyle experience knowing that the woman I was with might not be satisfied. I felt bad. When you go on a lifestyle date, someone is giving up their time for you. Okay, they're putting time and money and effort into their evening. So I just felt like I didn't want to disappoint again. Someone put all that effort into me. I wanted to make sure that this wasn't going to happen again. So on Monday, I immediately called my doctor. And my doctor is awesome. I tell him everything and I don't feel judged. I can tell him anything freely. Within a few days, I had an appointment and went home with a prescription for Viagra. I would be damned if a woman spent time and money to be with me and I couldn't satisfy her with at least some decent penetration. So I took it a step further. I contacted GamerGuy and asked if we could get together again soon, like as soon as possible. So I can't help it. I was just adamant about redeeming myself. So we actually scheduled another game night / play date 2 weekends ahead of that. So it would have been 2 weeks after our last play date. Again, we got an Airbnb. Again, we drove to Indianapolis. And again, we played some games first. So now I'm armed with Viagra and some confidence. So I was not as shy this time around. We got to playing right away, and I can't explain the sense of pride and relief I felt when she pulled down my underwear and I was rock hard. Thank you, Viagra. There's not too much to share about this second play date. Just, we had lots of fun. I was able to actually go 3 rounds. Like I didn't finish the third time, but that is the most I've ever gone on a lifestyle date to this date. It is usually a one and done thing for me when it comes to play dates. Occasionally I can go 2 rounds, but that's about it. Another thing was that this was the first time we played without condoms. They knew that we were practically brand new with only one other couple under our belt before playing with them. And they brought test results with them to prove that they were STD free. Now, Eva has an IUD and I've had a vasectomy, so we weren't worried about pregnancy either. So we didn't use condoms. So that was nice too. And I'm sure it played at least a small role in me being able to get hard. Condoms just tend to be a boner killer for me. Oh, and one last thing that was new. She asked me to come on her face. And I had only done that once before with Eva shortly after college, and she hated it. Okay, so I had never done it before with a girl who really wanted it and enjoyed it. So that was pretty hot. Oh, and Eva swallowed someone's cum. Gamer Guy's cum. So she swallowed somebody's cum other than mine for the first time in 20-something years. So that was interesting too. So that was new. Let's see. Long story short, we ended up never playing with the couple again, despite having a great time. Both times. We saw them at a hotel takeover a few months later in October, but we were admittedly kind of turned off by the company they kept, and I'll save that for another episode. But honestly, I can't really explain why we never got back together with them. They were a lot of fun, and like I said, she was just the sweetest person. One thing I forgot to mention was that at the time I was 44 and she was like 27, and he was in his mid to late 30s, but it was quite the age gap, and it did a lot for my ego, I'm not going to lie. But we just kind of grew apart, I guess, and I think one of the main reasons was distance. Okay, I mean, we didn't want to have regular couples that we played with that required us to drive over 2 hours each time we played. We had kids at home, they had sports and band and school stuff. So it was quite a hassle and a money suck and a time suck to plan dates with someone so far away. So I guess that was the main reason, but we honestly just grew apart. We still touch base with them on occasion, and we'd be delighted to chat and catch up with them whenever we run into them again. But we just don't have the desire to play with them again. And she's just so sweet. She's just such a nice person. So I guess another reason is she became more of like a friend to me, like not somebody that I wanted to play with, just somebody I just wanted to be friends with. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but we were still to this day very thankful for our time with them. they were way more experienced than us, and we learned a lot from them and about ourselves through them. The cherry on top was when we got home. All right, so the whole way home, we talked about our experience, just like we did the previous 2 times. It's one of our favorite things about the lifestyle experiences that we have, the conversation on the ride home. But when we got home, I remember we went into the bathroom to put our toiletries away from the trip. And Eva looks right at me and says, "So, who are we going to fuck next?" This was a big moment for me, believe it or not. In our very short time in the lifestyle, I kind of felt like Eva was doing it more for me, you know? Now, she denied it, but I still kind of felt that way. But when she said that to me, I knew it was on. Eva was fully on board. So this guy, the gamer guy, he treated her so well, and he made her body do things that she had never experienced before and that she loved, and she was ready for more. So that meant we were going to keep having fun. So I needed to get to work and find our next target, and that will be our next episode. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed my retellings and my thoughts on the lifestyle. So if so, I hope you'll come back and listen again. If you'd like to connect with me, feel free to find me on Kick or Instagram at Evan Dienson. That's EvanDeanson, Evan Dienson. For the record, I don't check my Instagram account regularly, so please don't be upset about any delayed response times. That's going to happen. But until next time, again, thank you for joining us, and take care, everybody.